Commissioner Rob Manfred with this statement. To our fans, I first want to thank you for your continued support of the great game of baseball. This past season, we were reminded of how the national pastime can bring us together and restore our hope despite the difficult challenges of a global pandemic. As we began to emerge from one of the darkest periods in our history, our ballparks were filled with fans. The games were filled with excitement, and millions of families felt the joy of watching baseball together. That is why I'm so disappointed about the situation in which our game finds itself today. Despite the league's best efforts to make a deal with the Players Association, we were unable to extend our 26-year-long history of labor peace and come to an agreement with the MLBPA before the current CBA expired. Therefore, we have been forced to commence a lockout of major league players, effective at 12:01 a.m. Eastern on December 2nd. I want to explain to you how we got here and why we have to make this action today. Simply put, we believe that an off-season lockout is the best mechanism to protect the 2022 season. We hope that the lockout will jumpstart the negotiations and get us to an agreement that will allow this season to start on time. This defensive lockout was necessary because the Players Association's vision for Major League Baseball would threaten the ability of most teams to be competitive. It's simply not a viable option. From the beginning, the MLBPA has been unwilling to move from their starting position, compromise, or collaborate on solutions. When we began negotiations over a new agreement, the Players Association already had a contract that they wouldn't trade for any other in sports. Baseball players have no salary cap, are not subjected to a maximum length or dollar amount on contracts. In fact, only MLB has guaranteed contracts that run 10 or more years and in excess of $300 million. We have not proposed anything that would change these fundamentals. While we have heard repeatedly that free agency is broken, in the month of November, $1.7 billion was committed to free agents, smashing the prior record by nearly 4 times. By the end of the offseason, clubs will have committed more money to players than in any offseason in MLB history. We worked hard to find compromise while making the system even better for players by addressing concerns raised by the Players Association. We offered to establish a minimum payroll for all clubs to meet for the first time in baseball history, to allow the majority of players to reach free agency earlier through an age-based system that would eliminate any claims of service time manipulation, and to increase compensation for all young players, including increases in the minimum salary. When negotiations lacked momentum, we tried to create some by offering to accept the universal designated hitter, to create a new draft system using a lottery similar to other leagues, and to increase the competitive balance tax threshold that affects only a small number of teams. We have had challenges before with respect to making labor agreements and have overcome those challenges every single time during my tenure. Regrettably, it appears the Players Association came to the bargaining table with a strategy of confrontation over compromise. They never wavered from collectively the most extreme set of proposals in their history, including significant cuts to the revenue-sharing system, a weakening of the competitive balance tax, and shortening the period of time that players play for their teams. All of these changes would make our game less competitive, not more. To be clear, this hard but important step does not necessarily mean games will be canceled. In fact, we are taking this step now because it accelerates the urgency for an agreement with as much runway as possible to avoid doing damage to the 2022 season. Delaying this process further would only put spring training, opening day, and the rest of the season further at risk, and we cannot allow an expired agreement to again cause an in-season strike and a missed World Series like we experienced in 1994. We all owe you, our fans, better than that. Today is a difficult day for baseball, but as I have said all year, there is a path to a fair agreement, and we will find it. I do not doubt the league and the players share a fundamental appreciation for this game and a commitment to its fans. I remain optimistic that both sides will seize the opportunity to work together to grow, protect, and strengthen the game we love. MLB is ready to work around the clock to meet that goal. I urge the Players Association to join us at the table. Tom Verducci just listened to me read for a very long time, and that is a statement from Commissioner Rob Manfred on a night where we have a work stoppage in Major League Baseball, Tom, for the first time in 26 years. Your reaction to what you just heard me read from the commissioner?
Well, Greg, my reaction is that runway that the commissioner referenced there looks like it's going to be a long one, because I didn't see a lot of optimism in the near term in those words, such as, The Players Association came to this with their most extreme set of proposals in their history, that they chose confrontation over compromise. Those kind of words tell me there's a philosophical difference here. Now, an optimist would tell you there's a lot of things that would lead to an agreement. I'm talking about things like raising the minimum salary, no compensation attached to free agents, an NBA-style draft lottery system, changes to the competitive balance tax threshold. That's sort of math that needs to be worked out. Not too difficult because philosophically on the same page. Here's where I think there's a major philosophical difference, and that is what it means to be competitive. The players are saying that teams in baseball are taking revenue sharing money and they are not spending it. For instance, this year there were 4 clubs below $70 million in payroll. Go back 5 years and there was only 2. They see a problem with that, and they want mechanisms almost force teams to spend money when they're not in position to compete for a playoff spot. The owners are saying, well, wait a second, the game ebbs and flows, and some of these smart general managers have figured out when it's time, when the window presents itself, that's when you spend. Dan talked earlier about those incremental wins. Getting from 73 wins to 76 wins by spending $132 million, which the Chicago White Sox did on the free agent market in 2015, now is not considered a winning strategy in baseball. So philosophically, there's a big difference here about what to do about the teams that are not spending a lot of money to try to force them, in the player's sense, to be as competitive as they are. I don't know how you bridge that gap right now. I think some of these other issues can be addressed, and there can be agreement on some of these. I call them math equations, really. It's about arriving at the right numbers, getting to this philosophical difference on what it means to be competitive as it relates to clubs spending revenue sharing money. That's difficult because the owners came back and said, well, if we have a mechanism to force these teams to spend money, or we reduce their revenue sharing based on them not spending payroll, well, that's going to force at least 10 teams to actually cut their payrolls. So they see this as regressive to the players, and the players are saying, we just want you to compete like we compete, do the best that you can every single year. That's going to take some time to bridge a huge philosophical gap.
5 years ago, the two of us were sitting in this studio talking about a new collectively bargained agreement between the Players Association and Major League Baseball. How did that deal specifically lead us to tonight?
Well, the players will tell you it didn't work as intended. And specifically, I believe, when it comes to 2 things, minimum salary and the competitive balance tax thresholds. Neither one really moved all that much. In fact, the minimum salary for baseball players is about 37% below what it is for NHL players. And a player making the minimum in 2014 actually made more money with inflation factored in than a player in 2021. So it really didn't jump up that much. Again, this is being collectively bargained back 5-6 years ago with that CBA. And the competitive balance threshold really didn't move that much. And the players will tell you it's acted sort of like a soft cap on teams, where teams are avoiding going over it because they don't want to lose draft picks, not so much the penalties they have to pay. That's certainly part of it too. So they saw unintended consequences with that last CBA when they agreed to something they thought turned out to be a good deal. They said it actually didn't work out the way that we thought.
And here we are with lockout. Tom Verducci, thank you very much. The Major League Baseball Players Association did release this statement moments ago. Major League Baseball has announced a lockout of players, shutting down our industry. This shutdown is a dramatic measure, regardless of the timing. It is not required by law or for any other reason. It was the owner's choice, plain and simple, specifically calculated to pressure players into relinquishing rights and benefits and abandoning good faith bargaining proposals that will benefit not just players, but the game and industry as a whole. These tactics are not new. We have been here before, and players have risen to the occasion time and again, guided by a solidarity that has been forged over generations. We will do so again here. We remain determined to return to the field under the terms of a negotiated collective bargaining agreement that is fair to all parties and provides fans with the best version of the game we all love. Now, Tony Clark, who's the executive director of the Players Association, with this specific statement. This drastic and unnecessary measure will not affect the players' resolve to reach a fair contract. We remain committed to negotiating a new collective bargaining agreement that enhances competition, improves the product for our fans, and advances the rights and benefits of our membership. That again from Tony Clark.